Questions. Question 1. Dr. So Cheung-wing. Established in April this year, the Working Group on Patriotic Education, the Working Group harnesses collective wisdom, contributes insights and takes actions in respect of the work strategies, directions, and plans for holistic implementation of patriotic education. On taking forward patriotic education, will the government inform this council? 1. As it is learned that many galleries and exhibitions organized on the own initiative of community groups with an affection for the country and Hong Kong are crafted with ingenuity, skillfully blending patriotic education with exhibition contents and art, whether the government has compiled statistics on the current total number of community-operated galleries for patriotic exhibitions in Hong Kong, whether the working group has specific plans to foster concerted efforts between government departments and non-governmental organizations, NGOs, in making good use of the valuable patriotic education resources in the community, if so, of the details, if not the reasons for that. 2. Given that the working group has set up an electronic mailbox to invite all sectors of the community to offer views and suggestions for more effective implementation of patriotic education, of the total number of valid views and suggestions received by the working group so far, and whether it has accordingly adjusted and refined its existing plans or launched new plans. If so, of the details, if not the reasons for that. And 3, whether it knows the total numbers of schools, teachers, and students participating in the activities of the Patriotic Education Center since its setup, and whether the government has made recommendations on improvements to such activities. Secretary for Constitutional and Mainland Affairs. President, having consulted the Education Bureau (EDB), a consolidated reply in response to the questions raised by Dr. So Cheung-wing is as follows. The Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, Hong Kong SAR, government attaches great importance to the promotion of patriotic education and endeavors to build mainstream values in Hong Kong, characterized by patriotism with affection for our country and Hong Kong, and in conformity with the principle of one country, two systems. The Chief Executive has put forward various initiatives relating to patriotic education in this year's and last year's policy address, including setting up the Working Group on Patriotic Education, the Working Group under the Constitution and Basic Law Promotion Steering Committee, chaired by the Chief Secretary for Administration, organizing activities in commemoration of the 80th anniversary of victory in the War of Resistance in the coming year, organizing by the EDB a range of joint school and cross-sectoral activities under the Love Our Home, Treasure Our Country 3.0 series, continuing to enhance Chinese history and national geography education in primary and secondary schools, as well as enriching patriotism and history elements in mainland exchange programs, and so on. As such, we hope to take the all-out and all-direction approach to vigorously promote the spirit of patriotism and cultivate and enhance patriotic atmosphere in society, enabling patriotism to take root in Hong Kong as well as in people's minds. Since its setup in April this year, the working group has taken forward the relevant work in a proactive manner and proposed various short, medium, and long-term policy measures in relation to patriotic education, having regard to the actual circumstances of Hong Kong. The working group also understands that patriotic education is a matter of connection with people's heart and a task that requires ongoing effort and should be conducted through a soft and heart-moving approach. Meanwhile, to achieve success in implementing patriotic education, apart from the government's effort, it is vital to have active and collective participation of all sectors of the community and the general public. To unite and strengthen efforts for promotion of patriotic education, since its setup, the working group has taken the initiative to conduct research and studies by inviting all sectors of the community to offer suggestions on how to effectively promote patriotic education. We have received very enthusiastic responses. The Secretariat has received a total of over 300 comments and suggestions covering areas such as school education, Chinese culture, Chinese history, national development, use of media for promotion, education on history of the War of Resistance, and proactive facilitation of cooperation with the community groups, and so on. The relevant views and suggestions have been passed to the 4 subgroups under the working group and relevant government department for study and consideration. Based on the feasible suggestions, we will propose policy measures for consideration by the working group in due course. In addition to widely soliciting opinions, the government places great importance to patriotic education activities organized by community groups, including the development of patriotic education resources such as exhibition halls. To observe the related facilities and show support, members of the working group paid visits to various local patriotic education bases and exhibition centers. This July, the working group visited 2 community-operated facilities, namely the Hong Kong Shuttlecock Anti-Japanese War Memorial Hall, Laws House, and the exhibition hall for Hong Kong patriotic education in Wing Ping Chun, Santin. The exhibition facilities displayed a number of artifacts on patriotic education and the history of the War of Resistance, facilitating members of the public to enhance their understanding of the country and foster the love for our motherland in Hong Kong. The working group also visited the National Security Exhibition Gallery at the Hong Kong Museum of History in October this year. The next step for the working group will be to continue with its site visits, including visits to the Patriotic Education Center of the Hong Kong Federation of Education Workers and a Youth Development and National Education Base managed by the Hong Kong Army Cadets Association in Tsing Yi. In fact, Hong Kong has rich patriotic education resources, including the Hong Kong Museum of History, the Hong Kong Palace Museum, the Hong Kong Museum of the War of Resistance and Coastal Defense, the Hong Kong Heritage Museum, as well as the Hong Kong Science Museum, where a wealth of patriotic educational materials on Chinese history, national achievements, fine traditions of Chinese culture, and the wartime journey of Hong Kong are displayed, and thematic exhibitions are organized from time to time. For example, the glorious voyage, splendid achievements of the People's Republic of China in its 75 years exhibition series has been held at the Hong Kong Museum of History and the Hong Kong Science Museum since the 27th of September, illustrating the struggle that our country had been through and its perseverance for its extraordinary achievements in advancement over the past 3/4 of a century from a variety of perspectives. Apart from the museums and exhibitions mentioned above, there are quite a number of landmarks and relics with historical value in Hong Kong, which can be leveraged to enrich the content and experience of patriotic education. Examples include hiking trails with wartime historic footprints, namely Lion Rock Historic Walk, Shingwun War Relics Trail, and Lok Kang War Relics Trail, as well as the memorial monuments for martyrs during World War II at Wu Kao Tang and Tam Chok Wan, constructed to honor members of an anti-Japanese guerrilla force called the Hong Kong and Kowloon Independent Brigade on the East River Column, and local civilians who sacrificed themselves to defend Hong Kong against the Japanese invaders. These 2 monuments have been incorporated into the list of state facilities and sites marking the War of Resistance against Japanese aggression published by the State Council, highlighting the significant patriotic educational value. The government highly encourages the community to promote patriotic education together and continue to develop various patriotic education resources, including education bases, exhibition halls and historic sites, or patriotic figures and heroic deeds, etc. The working group will actively study how to consolidate community efforts and make the best use of such valuable patriotic education resources in order to comprehensively take forward the promotion of patriotic education in a diversified manner. As for the Patriotic Education Center established by the Hong Kong Federation of Education Workers, the center has been actively echoing the effort of the government in promoting national education by organizing activities such as educational visits and teacher professional development since its setup in 2022. According to the information provided by the center, since its commencement of operation in September 2022, as of November 2024, about 330 schools and 70 organizations joined the national studies activities of the center, with a total attendance of about 27,600. The center also organized over 150 on-site seminars at schools with an attendance of about 15,000 teachers and students in total. In addition to the activities organized by the center, the EDB also commissioned the center through established procedures to provide on-site enrichment seminars on national security education for primary and secondary schools implementing the local curriculum. From March to the end of August 2024, the center provided on-site seminars for over 3,400 teachers from 64 secondary schools with positive feedback. The EDB has continued to make suggestions with a view to improving the design of the activities. Besides, the Hong Kong Academy for Gifted Education, subvented by the EDB, worked with the center to organize programs relating to diplomacy for the gifted and provided suggestions suited to the learning needs of gifted students when developing the content of the programs. Thank you, President. Dr. So Cheung-wing. Thank you, Mr. Eric Zhang, for the reply. It helps the Council to better understand the work of the working group since its setup in April. A lot of work has been done on patriotic education, as well as the work of the Patriotic Education Center. In the main reply, however, the community-operated galleries for patriotic exhibitions numbers are lacking in the reply. There is no information about the views and suggestions for more effective implementation of patriotic education either. The key of patriotic education is the diversified participation of the community. So I want to ask the administration, will the 300 suggestions collected be incorporated in order to develop a holistic system for the implementation of patriotic education? Is there any plan to provide resources such as venues to achieve the complementarity of community-operated galleries in order to enhance its coverage? Secretary. Thank you, President. Thank you, Dr. So. On community-operated galleries for patriotic exhibitions, in our main reply, we already provided information that we have. That is the situation about the community-operated galleries. We have also made site visits to the community-operated galleries. Dr. So asked, in view of the views and suggestions collected from society, will we use them to formulate policies? Yes, definitely yes. 300 or so suggestions have been received. We will analyze these views one by one. We will also relate the suggestion to the Working Group on Patriotic Education for analysis and study. After considering feasibility of these suggestions, we will study the relevant policies to take them forward. On resources, we welcome different sectors of the community to provide suggestions. We will have regard to the contents of the suggestions as well as feasibility to consider them, having regard to the actual situation. Ms. Jovi Chan. President, FTU has been advocating the active participation of patriotic education. I'd like to ask about the history of unions. Many young people visited the museums in Hong Kong. Quite many exhibits were displayed from the perspective of colonial rule under the British government. We have requested to show the real history of Hong Kong. We discussed the development and planning of museums in one of the panel meetings. Will the government organize regular visits to not just Hong Kong museums, but also to review the contents displayed in museums? Secretary. Thank you, President. Thank you, Ms. Jovi Chan. In relation to medium to long-term measures of the working group, we have 9 main areas. Many of them have to do with out-of-classroom experiential activities and other activities. Young people are a focus, of course, in relation to promotion. We'll definitely enhance collaboration with youth groups. We will also formulate policies having regard to the suggestions received. Thank you. Mr. Kenneth Falk. Thank you, President. Sports are a great way to promote patriotic education. Athletes taking part in the Paris Olympics visited Hong Kong. Hong Kong people felt very proud. In the main reply, we learned that 300 views have been received, but none of them is related to sports. We are going to have the national games next year, and many athletes will visit Hong Kong. Will the working group be proactive to hold more exhibitions in relation to national games so that we will invite athletes to Hong Kong and to meet with the public in society? Secretary. Thank you, President. Thank you, Mr. Kenneth Falk. Of course, sports embody the achievements of the country. They are also some main contents of patriotic education. Of the 300 or so views, yes, some of them involve tourism and sports promotion. From the perspective of the government, we have considerations in relation to patriotic education through sports and tourism. Secretary of Department led the teams to cheer for the national athletes. We cheer for the athletes of our country and of Hong Kong. In the national games next year, there will also be similar arrangements. For the broadcasting of the matches, we will continue with our work on patriotic education promotion. Ms. Lillian Kwok. Thank you, President. From learning more about our country and from recognizing our country and to having an affection for our country, we need to make contributions and play a leading role in patriotic education. Schools are an important base for patriotic education promotion. From kindergarten all the way to post-secondary institutions, quite a lot have been done on promoting patriotic education. It's quite difficult to assess this aspect. That is the sentiment of students. We need to change the mindset of students and to elevate their spirit to patriotism. So how can we actually assess the effectiveness of this work? Which public officer will reply to this supplementary question? President, I'd like to hear from the Education Bureau. Thank you, President. Thank you, Ms. Lillian Kwok. To implement patriotic education in schools, just now Professor Priscilla Leung, in her report of the panel on education, also said that this is an important aspect. Education is very important. We have been providing guidelines on curriculum. We also provide training for teachers. We organize activities to promote patriotic education. Just now, member asked about leading students to visit museums. Will there be other activities to allow students to participate in other activities? Well, the Education Bureau will organize different competitions, so students from a young age at school will develop a sense of affection for our country. We mentioned national games. We will vigorously promote national games at schools. The Education Bureau will visit schools, and schools will also submit a report on the promotion of patriotic education every year to the Bureau. We conduct inspections at schools. Schools have to fill in questionnaires every year in relation to the promotion of national education and patriotic education. They make reports to the Education Bureau. Ms. Maggie Chan. Thank you, President. In the main reply, the Secretary mentioned that the government attaches a lot of importance to community groups' activities, say community-operated galleries for patriotic exhibitions. If these groups need resources on venues, is there any mechanism to provide support from the government? Thank you, President. Thank you, Ms. Maggie Chan, for the question. In our main reply, we said that we attach a lot of importance to community-operated galleries for patriotic exhibitions and activities. If these groups have any views, suggestions, or requests, they can contact the government. We will actively consider their suggestions.
Question 2, Mr. Sunny TAN. Thank you, President. To promote the upgrading and transformation of traditional industries while actively nurturing emerging ones, the 2024 policy address announced the formulation of a medium to long-term development plan for new industrialization in Hong Kong. In this connection, the government informed this council in formulating the plan, apart from working out the overall development direction of traditional and emerging industries from a macro perspective, whether it will also examine the current development situation and comparative advantages of different industries from a micro perspective, including identifying those industries which are more competitive in areas such as innovative research and development, product development, production and manufacturing, supply chain management, market internationalization, and tariff advantages, in order to formulate relevant medium to long-term development strategies and support measures targeting at individual industrial sectors with relative advantages and potential, so as to map out more precisely the development of a new industrialization in Hong Kong to drive different industries to accelerate the formation of industrial clusters as well as the vigorous development of the ecosystems. 2. How to promote better interface and deeper cooperation between various industries in Hong Kong, including the textiles and garment industry, and the departments, organizations, associations, chambers, and enterprises of the corresponding industries in the mainland to strengthen Hong Kong's role as a super connector and a super value adder. And 3. How to make good use of the commercial and trade networks of overseas and the mainland economic trade and economic and trade offices to jointly deepen the regional cooperation and exchanges on industry and commerce between local industries and Hong Kong enterprises in the mainland and overseas by leveraging the advantages of their extensive international connections. Secretary for Innovation, Technology and Industry. President, on the basis of the development directions and strategies outlined in the Innovation and the Technology Development Blueprint, the Innovation, Technology and Industry Bureau (ITIB) has been accelerating the development of new quality productive forces tailored to local conditions and expeditiously propelling new industrializations through various measures. For instance, we have supported local manufacturers to upgrade to smart manufacturing through the new industrialization funding scheme, which has supported over 90 production production lines to date with subsidy of around $365 billion. In addition, we launched in September this year the $10 billion New Industrialization Acceleration Scheme to provide matching grants for strategic enterprises to set up new smart manufacturing facilities in Hong Kong. These measures are testimony to the determination of the current government in promoting new industrialization. With regard to Mr. Tang's questions, my reply is as follows. 1. ITIB will engage a professional consultancy firm to launch, on the basis of the blueprint, a study to provide recommendations on new industrialization and relevant professional services in Hong Kong, including looking into the development status, constraints, difficulties faced, etc. At the same time, we will explore Hong Kong's unique advantages under the one country, two systems and the economic development trends in the region, and to dissect the competitive advantages of Hong Kong vis-a-vis that of our regional competitors in view of the impact and opportunities brought about by Hong Kong's development of strategic, emerging and future industries. On such basis, we will deliberate on appropriate proposal to leverage the development of new quality productive forces. The aim is to consolidate and enhance the economic value of Hong Kong's manufacturing industry through new industrialization, and in turn support the formulation of a modern industrial ecosystem with advanced manufacturing as its backbone. We will make reference to relevant experiences in the mainland and overseas in formulating policy recommendations on the way forward. We are actively making preparations to commence the study as soon as possible. 2. In consultation with the Commerce and Economic Development Bureau (CDB) and the Constitution and Mainland Affairs Bureau, our reply to the second and third parts of the question is as follows. The Hong Kong SAR government is committed to giving full play to our role as a super connector and super value adder in assisting Hong Kong enterprises and professional services to explore Belt and Road (BNR) business opportunities. Invest Hong Kong and the Hong Kong Trade Development Council (TDC) are setting up a mechanism to strengthen the interface for attracting mainland enterprises with potential to set up international or regional headquarters in Hong Kong for managing offshore trading and supply chain, while providing one-stop diversified professional advisory services for enterprises in Hong Kong looking to go global. TDC's overseas office network will also provide on-site support services to these enterprises for developing their supply chains. In addition to the overseas visits and the signing of relevant memoranda of understanding and agreements by local business delegations led by the Chief Executive and Secretaries of Departments and Directors of Bureau to encourage collaboration on various fronts and to strengthen commercial trade ties, the Belt and Road Summit held by CDB and TDC over the years has provided a quality forum for bringing enterprises from Hong Kong, the mainland, and countries along the BNR together to explore business opportunities. The Hong Kong SL government plans to organize a BNR cross-professional forum and examine the establishment of a BNR capacity building center next year to forge ties with BNR countries and regions by using our soft power, thereby paving the way for collaboration. 3. Currently, the Hong Kong SL government has 5 mainland offices and 11 liaison units on the mainland and 14 overseas Hong Kong economic and trade offices (ETOs). Together with the offices of Invest Hong Kong and TDC worldwide, Hong Kong has set up offices in 66 cities around the world covering 129 countries. The various mainland offices and ETOs will continue their effort to fully dovetail with the relevant policy measures of the Hong Kong SL government in promoting Hong Kong through different events with a view to attracting investment and talents to develop in Hong Kong and facilitate Hong Kong enterprises in expanding into the mainland and overseas markets. They will also collaborate closely with provincial and municipal governments on the mainland and other relevant agencies to promote and explain the SAR government's major policies, Hong Kong's unique advantages and opportunities brought about by the BNR and the Greater Bay Area. The government will continue to review ways to expand its global office network and strengthen Hong Kong's economic and trade connection with partners around the world, in particular emerging markets. Mr. Sunny TAN. Thank you, President. Secretary. Now, there's need to promote interaction and collaboration among industries. This is an important way to promote industrial development. For example, garments and textile industry will require interaction with e-commerce platforms, cross-boundary collaboration, and so on. So the government plays an important role here. I wonder when you will start the study and complete it that you just mentioned. Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Sunny TAN, for the question. You mentioned interdepartmental collaboration. Yes, we agree it's very important. With the development of industries, it involves various aspects. Apart from the ITIB, there also involves the availability of land, the Education Bureau, of course, the various other departments are involved. So they need to all step up collaboration. Just now I mentioned the medium to long-term development study. We hope to start the study within 2025. The study, we will first determine the scope of the study. You just made some good suggestions. We need to collect data, we need to analyze data, and then we have to draft a report, and finally we will submit the report. Now we want this study to be really professional, so on industrial development, the experience of policy studies. We also need to learn about the details of new industrialization. We also need to learn about the developments in the country and the GBA as well as around the world. So therefore, the government will step up interface with relevant organizations. We will also keep in communication with industries because they will offer us various valuable views. Thank you. Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you, President. In the third plenary session, there's mention of a high-quality development, and new quality productive forces, of course, are important, and I see that the Bureau has done much in this respect. I thank the government for taking on board on my previous suggestions. The manufacturing sector will account for the government set a target for the contribution of the manufacturing sector to GDP. It will be 5% eventually. So that's in 2032. So can you tell us what is the share of the manufacturing sector in the GDP now? Thank you. I would like to thank Mr. Holden Chow for his active support of industrial development in Hong Kong. The government has just published the the performance of the industries in Hong Kong. The revenue was $243 billion, an increase of 12% compared to the year before. As for the value added, is over $228 billion, an increase of 6% compared to the year before. Now we faced a challenging environment, but our industry still achieved the second highest growth rate over the past 2 decades. So that's because the members have given active support to all the measures proposed by government, and we can see that these measures are beginning to yield results. And then for the manufacturing industry, we have seen substantial changes in the industry. And many have told us that the manufacturing sector as contribution of the GDP cannot fully reflect the activities of the manufacturing sector as well as the special features. So some of the activities not reflected in the performance. For example, development of software, new product design, innovative product design, and so on. Now, so there are various indicators to measure industrial performance, but not all of them could be reflected in measuring the performance. And then there are different international organizations that we keep in close communication with. And then if we go by, there are standards set for different industries, and then the categorization of different industries may change because of the changes in the international standards. So we will keep watch of that, and we will try to update our data then. As for the manufacturing sector, can it really account for 5% of GDP by 2032? Well, this is the target we've set. We've certainly worked towards this target. But then the contribution of the manufacturing sector to GDP is a relative concept. So we have to also consider increasing the total income for the manufacturing sector. Now, the statistics are encouraging so far, and we will continue to work very hard to promote new industrialization and the development of the local manufacturing sector. Thank you. Dr. Junius Ho. Thank you, President. In part 2 of the main reply, the Secretary mentioned how we can play our role as a super connector and a super value adder. Now, there are plenty of opportunities along the Belt and Road. So what must the TDC do? And it said that they are now trying to establish a mechanism. Now, TDC organizes various forums, but in terms of concrete actions, what have they been doing? For example, are they taking advantage of Hong Kong as an international trade center and financial center? So that in the BNR countries, 153 out of the 153 countries, at least 100 countries are waiting for us to approach them. Now, yesterday I joined a program. It's poor people buying expensive items. So can we take advantage of our business environment and the cross-boundary services and business opportunities available, that is in terms of e-commerce? How can we help Hong Kong people and businesses in that respect, and what is the timetable? Thank you. Secretary. Under Secretary for Commerce and Economic Development. Thank you, Dr. Ho, for your question. I fully agree with Dr. Ho. In relation to the BNR initiative and in our work, we could leverage on our unique advantage, especially in the financial sector. That is, how can we link up or connect the different financial services across the boundary? If we can take good advantage of these professional services, it will add value to our economy as a whole. So that's why in the main reply, we said that we're going to organize a BNR cross-professional forum. We'll invite BNR enterprises, including mainland enterprises, and Hong Kong professional sectors, including the financial sectors in Hong Kong, to attend a high-level exchange session so that we could explore new areas for collaboration and also promote our professional services, in particular our financial services. We will also organize various visits. For example, Mr. Yao and I led delegations to Kazakhstan and to other Central Asian countries to open up new markets. Thank you. Dr. Wendy Hong. Thank you, President. Secretary. Now we see there are changes in the economic model. So the categorization of industries is outdated. Now more industries are actually being more and more integrated. I will call it Industry 2.0. Now, for example, aircraft maintenance and repair services. Now, we don't manufacture aircrafts, but then we provide repair and maintenance services. But then there are various skills and technical processes involved. So again, it's a merging of different industrial sectors. So that's why I call it a new industrialization 2.5. So will you consider including Industry 2.5 in your definition of industry? Because Industry 2.5 really suits Hong Kong for further development. Secretary, thank you, Dr. Wendy Hong, for your question. Now, as long as it's high-quality development, as long as the development will benefit the professional development of Hong Kong and the industrial development of Hong Kong, and if it will provide more jobs to Hong Kong people and improve their standard of living, of course, we will support all such development. Now you ask about, you mentioned that there's been structural changes in the industry. And in terms of the categorization of different industries, maybe we need to move with the times. You mentioned that, and I agree. If you look at our current developments, as I said, as long as such development will benefit our economy, will support it. Now, and then UN is now in discussion with various countries to see how we should define industry and how we should define the manufacturing industry. For example, traditionally, software does not count towards industrial activity. But then, with new industrialization, well, there's merging of different industrial factors. So maybe this is something we have to consider, and we welcome views from members on that. Thank you. Mr. Chen Yong. Thank you, President. Thank you, Secretary and Undersecretary. We could all see the government has done much, and we commend that effort. But then, for most manufacturers, because of globalization, they only keep their headquarters function or accounting function in Hong Kong, and then they have set up manufacturing bases in the mainland and Southeast Asia. So Hong Kong has strengths in service industry supporting manufacturing. So with new quality productive forces and new industrialization, they present important opportunities to Hong Kong. So can the government have a better policy measure for Hong Kong businesses, in particular in terms of industrial development? Secretary. Well, perhaps the Undersecretary will also give a reply, but let me first give you my views. Now, we are close to Greater Bay Area. We want to have coordinated development. Hong Kong has our own advantages. We have the advantages of a services industry. We also have upstream research advantage. And now we are going to expand such activities. And then manufacturing then go to the Greater Bay Area. So this will be the direction for us to promote development in Hong Kong. We will expedite closer collaboration between Hong Kong and the Greater Bay Area. And then we have various funds to support our innovative research and R&D. And then when funds are given, not more than half of those could be spent on the mainland. And so we keep an open mind in trying to support R&D. I wonder if the Undersecretary has anything to say. Undersecretary for Commerce and Economic Development. Thank you, President. I thank Mr. Chen Yong for his question. Now, together with the ITIB and TDC, we offer various support services. For example, the T-Box, E-Pass, Digital Academy, E-Commerce Academy, and so on. These are all initiatives much welcomed by Hong Kong businesses. And of course, we are familiar with Bud Fund too. That's another project we have. So for businesses registered in Hong Kong, substantial business here, they could all apply for these funds. And these businesses may be involved in manufacturing or service industries, or providing services, or they all may have a business operation with ASEAN countries. For example, manufacturers with factories in ASEAN, they could all apply for the Bud Fund. The cap is $7 million and it's 1-to-1 matching grant. And the fund could be used for hiring more staff or for purchasing equipment, facilities, software, or for producing promotional video or attending exhibitions and so on. So there are successful cases. You could go to the Trade and Industry Department or the Productivity Council website for the information. We also have the SME Reach Out and other offices to provide free advisory services. So you could visit the reference website, and then you will see the details on the various support schemes we have. Thank you.
Question 3, Mr. Yim Kong. Thank you, President. The latest policy address has proposed to develop a green maritime fuel bunkering center. There are views pointing out that green energy bunkering has become a high ground fiercely contested by major hub ports and a key factor in attracting the berthing of vessels on international voyages. The Shenzhen port has already achieved scalable operation in this area, with this year's liquefied natural gas LNG bunkering volume expected to triple that of Singapore and its cost also lower than that of Singapore. However, the relevant development in Hong Kong is at an initial stage, and it faces problems of low capacity and high cost in the production of new energy. In this connection, will the government inform this council, 1. Whether it will consider first cooperating with neighboring ports, for example, allowing green energy bunkering vessels from the Shenzhen port to provide new energy bunkering for international cargo vessels at designated waters of Hong Kong, and streamlining the relevant maritime approval process for the provision of cross-boundary vessel services. 2. Whether it will, on the basis of the existing offshore LNG terminal, make long-term plans for dedicated berthing spaces and ancillary backup storage facilities for methanol and hydrogen energy bunkering in Kaiting or suitable locations, and provide, with reference drawn from the practices of the Shenzhen municipal government, subsidizes on the investment and operation of vessels to bunkering services providers so as to attract them to expand their businesses in Hong Kong, and 3. Whether it will consider making plans for the development of green energy production bases in the northern metropolis and embarking on recycling green energy production by integrating refuse handling facilities so as to dovetail with the development of green maritime fuel bunkering center. Secretary for Transport and Logistics. President, Hong Kong, as an international maritime center with advantages such as an excellent geographical location and good port security record, has long been the top bunkering port in South China and ranked 7th in the world in terms of bunkering volume internationally in 2023. In view of the International Maritime Organization (IMO's) target to reach net zero carbon emissions from international shipping by around 2050, the industry has started to switch to using low or even zero carbon green maritime fuels. Therefore, Hong Kong should expedite its development into a high-quality green maritime fuel bunkering center so as to give full play to our existing advantages, increase port competitiveness, and consolidate Hong Kong's status as an international maritime center. For this, the government promulgated the Action Plan on Green Maritime Fuel Bunkering. The Action Plan last month, setting out 5 strategies and 10 actions to promote the development of green maritime fuel bunkering in Hong Kong and get prepared to cater for future market development. Regarding Mr. Yim Kong's question, the reply prepared in consultation with the Environment and Ecology Bureau is as follows. First, Hong Kong's maritime fuel bunkering has always been operated freely with no entry barrier or regulation. To start such business within Hong Kong waters, operators only need to conduct quantitative risk assessment and marine traffic impact assessment in respect of their bunkering operations and their proposed designated waters or berths for bunkering, and obtain approval from the Marine Department for their mode of operation, as well as ensure that the bunkering vessels are locally licensed vessels compliant with the prevailing statutory requirements on ship safety, dangerous goods control, etc. We're committed to keeping the market open, maintaining market flexibility, and promoting fair competition. I'm pleased to learn that some enterprises have expressed interest in starting green maritime fuel bunkering businesses in Hong Kong. To expedite development, the Marine Department introduced facilitating measures to approve temporary local licenses to suitable service operators for the bunkering services so that they can provide bunkering services using non-local licensed vessels, including those from other cities in the Greater Bay Area and beyond. The Marine Department is streamlining the approval procedures for green maritime fuel bunkering to provide efficient and facilitating services with clear requirements for future bunkering services. Second, the focus of the promulgation of the action plan is the adoption of multi-fuel strategy and the fostering of establishment and development of an ecosystem for the bunkering industry, including providing support for the industry to develop facilities for the storage of various types of green maritime fuels. In terms of biofuel, we will explore relaxing the administrative regulations on the storage and transportation of biodiesel at higher concentrations. On LNG, the government will explore using the offshore LNG terminal built by the 2 power companies to provide LNG for bunkering purposes on the condition that it will not affect electricity generation and prices. On green methanol, the government has identified the backup land parcel in Qingyi South and will commence preparatory work for applying for the relevant planning permission for using the site for storage of dangerous goods. The government also welcomes companies to retrofit some of the current oil storage tanks for storage of green maritime fuels and will provide suitable assistance in relation to the administrative procedures. The development of hydrogen as a maritime fuel is at an early stage, with a few hydrogen-powered vessels in operation or in order. The demand for hydrogen from the industry is currently limited. Nevertheless, we're monitoring the market situation and will conduct a feasibility study on the development of bunkering of hydrogen and green ammonia in Hong Kong starting next year to get a head start. We will introduce 4 measures to support industry development, including A, setting up a dedicated team at the Marine Department to provide one-stop services for green shipping-related companies interested in setting up businesses in Hong Kong. B, setting up a collaborative platform for stakeholders in the relevant businesses to catalyze the development of the industrial chain and ecosystem. C, developing green-friendly port facilities arrangement, including giving priority for green maritime fuel-powered vessels to use anchorages for bunkering if necessary. And D, launching a green maritime fuel incentive scheme next year to grant subsidies to pioneer companies after they have completed preparatory work such as quantitative risk assessment and marine traffic impact assessment and provided bunkering services to vessels within a specified period of time. Third, mainland China is a major production base for multiple green maritime fuels, including green methanol, and its operation are also relatively competitive. With the advantage of enjoying the support of the motherland, Hong Kong can better meet its need through importing green maritime fuels from mainland China to establish a stable supply chain. Currently, some enterprises in Hong Kong are already producing biodiesel. The government welcomes suggestions from the industry for producing more types of green maritime fuels in Hong Kong. We will provide necessary assistance in relation to the administrative procedures. At present, Hong Kong has also taken forward the development of waste-to-energy facilities with a view to moving away from the reliance of landfills for direct disposal of municipal solid waste by 2035. The Integrated Waste Management Facilities Phase 1 I-Park, currently under the construction next to Sekou Chau, and the planned I-Park 2 in Tuen Mun, both adopt incineration technology to convert waste into thermal energy for power generation. Apart from facility operation, surplus electricity can also be exported to the power grid. The government is identifying suitable sites in the northern metropolis for building the third advanced waste-to-energy facility. The specific planning and development timetable of the facility will depend on the projected amount of waste that will be generated in relation to long-term population and economic growth dynamics, as well as the actual volume of waste reduced and recycled. Thank you, President. Mr. Yim Kong. President, the European Union has already included the maritime fuel into its carbon trading system, and starting from 2025, shipping companies have to submit a report and pay a higher tax rate for their carbon emissions when they call at European Union ports. Since then, Hong Kong vessels will have to pay taxes for the European Union when they call at EU ports. To create a greenfield bunkering centers, few enterprises and shipping companies must bear extra burden. I wonder if the administration will work with the mainland authorities to levy a carbon tax on vessels coming from the European Unions. Thank you. Secretary, thank you, President, and thank you, Mr. Yim Kong, for the question. We must meet the carbon emissions goal from the IMO for the development of a center for greenfield bunkering. And our standards must be in alignment with that of other countries. We noticed that different countries adopt different measures and strategies to lower their carbon emissions. Some of them offer incentives, some impose penalties. Mr. Yim Kong just now mentioned that the European Union, starting from January 2024, expanded the carbon tax base to maritime systems, and they will legislate for a framework for the charging of taxes. We'll look at how the local shipping companies are affected by the new requirements of the EU. We will look at the measures imposed by other countries because we want to help a local sector and develop ourselves into a center for green maritime fuel bunkering. We will help the sector in lowering their operational and compliance cost so that they can meet the international requirements. Second, when we look at the carbon pricing systems and the carbon tax, we must maintain our competitiveness because apart from becoming a bunkering centers, we also want to enhance our port competitiveness. We will continue to work with the sector and Mr. Yim Kong by monitoring the measures rolled out by other countries and the IMO. As I mentioned in my main reply, we will offer a number of schemes for the sector. We reduce some of the port dues and registration fees for the vessels. For green methanol, we will see if we can offer tax concessions for vessels that use such fuels. Ms. Lillian Kwok. Thank you, President. For green maritime fuel-powered vessels, they use LNG, biodiesel, green methanol, ammonia, and so on. The popularity and use of these vessels are different. So I have a question. What study will you conduct? Will you accord priority to different views? Now, in terms of green maritime facilities, will you build them one after another? We're also concerned about the environmental implications. Do you have any measures or assessments to make sure that the use of the fuels are saved to the environment? Secretary. Thank you, President. Thank you, Ms. Kwok, for the question. Under the action agenda or action plan, we know that the local green maritime fuel bunkering sector is developing in different directions. We noticed that under the 14th five-year plan of a country, they focus on carbon peak and carbon neutrality, and they have set different targets for different maritime fuels. In terms of production, they have advantages, and they have also stable supply of various green maritime fuel. When we formulate our strategy, we will look at the supply from our local industry and the country. We're not just at the starting stage for biodiesel or biofuels. Local enterprises are producing biofuels that meet the EU and US standards, that is B100. We produce 100,000 tons per year. We have to adjust the concentration, however, so that we can enhance our production volume to over 400,000 tons. We will try to assist the local operators through administrative procedures. As for LNG, the CLP is partnering with a company to enhance their production volume for LNG so that they can supply LNG from Inner Mongolia to Hong Kong. For green methanol, as I mentioned in my main reply, we have identified a piece of land in Chengyi South to allow interested parties to establish port backup or storage facilities. And a partnership agreement has also been signed on green methanol. As for the development of hydrogen, is still at an early stage. We'll look at the feasibility of providing such fuels locally. We're also concerned about the safety of the fuels. We ask the operators of fuel bunkering conduct a quantitative risk assessment and marine traffic impact assessment. With the help of Mr. Yik, we passed a amendment ordinance. That is the ordinance that set out a series of regulations on the use of fuels in Hong Kong. Thank you, President. Next, Mr. Duncan Chiu. Thank you, President. The Marine Department on the 28th of June 2024 has rolled out a carbon intensity indicator to encourage the maritime industry to transform. I wonder what the progress is. How many qualified registered local vessels are there? I wonder if the scheme is popular. Secretary. Thank you, President. Thank you, Mr. Yao, thank you, Mr. Chiu, for the question. In June this year, the Marine Department rolled out this incentive scheme to encourage the vessel industry to go for green transformation. For about 5,000 ships have received such incentives. Since the implementation of the incentive scheme, as at 24th of November this year, we have received over 500, that is 575 applications. Some 550 applications have been approved. Hopefully by 2024 to 2026, these vessels will, if they continue to receive A to B rating of CII, they will receive 60,000 Hong Kong dollars. We have met with the IMO and they recognize our pioneer status in this area. Not a lot of international ports adopt this carbon intensity indicator to encourage vessels to use green maritime fuel. We will continue to work hard. For 5,000 gross tonnage vessels and its figures, I don't have that at hand. I will supplement after the meeting. Thank you. Mr. Frankie Yik. Thank you, President. In the second part of the main reply of the Secretary, it is said that they will roll out 4 different measures to support the sector. They will provide a collaborative platform for stakeholders in the relevant businesses to catalyze the development of the industrial chain and ecosystem. The Liberal Party established a working group to promote methanol bunkering services. The administration has rolled out the action plan some months ago, and 19 organizations have signed up for a meeting of our working group because we want to establish a collaborative platform for communication. In another paragraph of your main reply, you mentioned that you have identified a port backup land parcel in Qingyi South for the storage of green methanol. I hope that before our meeting next week, you can give us some information so that I can inform the relevant sector that the administration has identified a piece of land for storage of green methanol. Now we are trying to link up different service providers and green maritime fuel suppliers to enhance collaboration. Secretary, I'm glad to hear that Mr. Yik is enhancing collaboration among different sectors. Before we promulgated the action plan, we have established a working group. The TLB is in close communication with the Marine Department. We think that there is a need to leverage on market forces, and there must be collaboration between the government and the businesses. As mentioned in the action plan, industrial development is crucial in the development of a center for green maritime fuel bunkering. As for the Qingyi South site that we have identified, well, is of 10 hectares large, and for traditional fuels, they can be stored in 2 tanks. For green maritime fuels, the storage design will be different. And this piece of land is next to the ocean, so we can build some port to deliver green fuels to the storage facilities. Later on, we will give Mr. Yix the relevant information. Mr. Martin Liu. President, the Chief Executive in his policy address said that we must create a green shipping corridor together with our partners. According to the progress report on green shipping corridors, a lot of ports such as Shanghai, Singapore, Foshan, Yokohama have participated. It seems that we're lagging behind. I wonder what the government's plan is in the creation of a green shipping corridor, and how are we going to collaborate with our partners? Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Liao, for the question. Thank you, President. As at February 2024, there are 60 green shipping corridors over the world. They are either at a starting stage or under a planning stage. We may not be advanced as other countries in this area, but as the green shipping corridor concept as a whole is just at a starting stage, we think that there's still time for us to catch up with Shanghai, Los Angeles, Rotterdam, and other ports. As mentioned in the action plan, we are going to create and establish a green shipping corridors by 2026.
Question for Mr. Michael TIEN. Thank you, President. It's been reported that a few months ago, a staff member of an RCHD residential care home for persons with disabilities was arrested for allegedly sexually assaulting residents in the RCHD, and the home operator concerned did not make public the incident until 2 months later, arousing public concern about the criteria and policy adopted by the government in handling similar incidents. In this connection, would the government inform this council? One, as this is not the first time that similar incidents have occurred, whether the government has established criteria and guidelines for the timing of announcing such incidents. If not, whether it will immediately review and consult the stakeholders, for example, the victims and their families, the residents and their families, the relevant professionals and operators, and announce the criteria and guidelines for the timing of announcing such incidents after striking a balance between considering the emotions of the victims and their families and ensuring the public's right to know. And 2, given that after the occurrence of the aforesaid incident, the Secretary for Labour and Welfare indicated that the Social Welfare Department had strictly followed the monitoring procedures and issued a written warning to the operator concerned, but some members of the public have criticized that the relevant monitoring procedures and penalty mechanism are not at all effective in curbing such incidents. Whether the SWD will learn from the bitter experiences and address the urgent needs of the families of RCHD residents by comprehensively reviewing the relevant monitoring mechanism and introducing effective measures to prevent the recurrence of such incidents. Secretary for Labour and Welfare. President. My reply to Mr. Tien's question is as follows. 1. The Social Welfare Department regulates the operation of RCHDs in accordance with CAP 613, Residential Care Homes Persons with Disabilities Ordinance, CAP 613A, Residential Care Homes Persons with Disabilities Regulation, and the Code of Practice for Residential Care Homes Persons with Disabilities. Under the existing requirement, in the event of a special incident, the RCHD shall inform the Licensing Office of Residential Care Homes for Persons with Disabilities of the SWD timely and submit a special incident report to the Licensing Office within 3 calendar days after a special incident has occurred. The government will consider the nature and severity of the incident, the impact on service users, users the follow-up actions of the operating organization and law enforcement bodies to determine whether it's necessary to disclose the incident. When determining the appropriate timing of announcement, it's necessary to strike a balance carefully. Prior counseling and support would be provided to the victims, their families, and other affected persons, and their emotions will be taken care of. Since each special incident is unique and the factors for consideration vary, it's not suitable to set a fixed time frame for announcement. 2. The government attaches great importance to the service quality of residential care homes and strives to strengthen the monitoring of their operations and management to improve their service standards. In the monitoring of RCHDs, dedicated teams of the licensing office regularly conduct surprise inspections at RCHDs and take strict enforcement actions against non-compliant RCHDs. Depending on the nature and severity of the non-compliant items, the SWD will issue advisory letters, warning letters, or written directions for remedial measures to the RCHDs and urge the RCHDs to implement corresponding improvement measures. If the RCHDs show no improvements, the SWD will consider taking prosecution actions. To enhance the transparency of the RCHD monitoring mechanism, warning records of non-compliant RCHDs are uploaded onto the SWD's website and the information website for RCHDs, where they are kept for 12 months. In addition, records of conviction for violating the ordinance or the regulation are posted on these websites and kept for 24 months. To safeguard the well-being of residents, the Code of Practice stipulates that all staff of an RCHD, including home managers, nurses, health workers, care workers, and ancillary workers, should undergo the Sexual Conviction Record Check Scheme implemented by the Security Bureau through the Hong Kong Police Force prior to employment or renewal of employment contracts. RCHDs are required to be equipped with CCTV surveillance systems that have recording functions to enhance security and supervision of their operations to protect the safety of their residents. The government has been implementing the Residential Care Homes Legislation Miscellaneous Amendments Ordinance 2023 by phases, including enhancing the accountability of care homes operators, raising the minimum staffing requirements, introducing a registration system for home managers, and so on, to ensure sufficient supervision of the operation, management, and control of care homes, thereby protecting the interests and safety of residents. To increase the deterrent effect on lawbreakers, the SWD has updated the security facility requirements in the Code of Practice in October this year, requiring RCHDs to formulate policies and mechanisms for monitoring CCTV surveillance systems and reviewing CCTV footage to enhance the monitoring of daily operations of RCHDs by the management. Strengthening RCHD staff's knowledge of identifying, preventing, and handling abuse incidents is crucial in preventing abuse. The SWD hosted a seminar in October this year for management and general staff from all RCHDs on protecting residents from abuse. Relevant training will continue to be provided to RCHD staff to enhance their vigilance against similar incidents. To minimize the risk of abuse in RCHDs, the SWD has urged RCHDs to formulate effective measures, provide clear work guidelines, and arrange continuous on-the-job training and supervision for their staff. In addition, enhancing knowledge and skills in protecting service users from abuse is one of the training themes of the SWD's dedicated fund in 2025. Social welfare organizations can apply for additional funding to strengthen relevant staff training. Thank you, President. Mr. Michael TIEN. Secretary, the public was shocked about this incident because there was a 2-month delay in the announcement of the incident. I want to ask about your timing for announcement in terms of the standards and criteria. Today you're telling us that there are no criteria and standards. This time around there is a 2-month delay. Next time there could be a 4-month delay or a 2-week delay. I think this is unacceptable. It is not the first time that we see such incidents happen. How come you did not talk to the victims as well as the families of the victims to come up with an acceptable time frame for announcement? Secretary, I thank Mr. Tien for the questions. I understand where he is coming from. We don't want to see such incidents happen. However, as I mentioned, each such incident is unique, and there are different factors that we have to consider. We have to deal with the victims as well as their families' emotions. We have to announce the incident at a time that is acceptable by the victims and their family members. It is hard for us, therefore, to draw a line in this regard. We don't want to handle or mishandle the incidents. So it's impossible for us to set a fixed time frame for announcement, and we have to take into consideration the unique nature of every such incident. We do have to take care of the emotions of the victims as well as their family members, and we will try to announce such incidents as early as possible. Mr. Michael Luke. This incident involves an association called Hon Association. It involves a sexual assault by the staff of the RCHD on mentally disabled residents. We have high expectations on such associations. Mentally incapacitated persons who go to these care homes, however, got sexually assaulted. In 2017, media reports unveiled an incident involving the death of a mentally disabled resident. There were also incidents where residents of these homes were mistreated. Please do not cite individual incidents. Please pose your questions, Mr. Luke. I was just raising some examples. Don't mention individual incidents. My apologies, President. We have to ensure that there is enough deterrence for these operating organizations of RCHDs. Under what circumstances the home managers have to be held accountable? Under what circumstances should the government terminate the licenses of these care homes? Are there any standards imposed by the government? Secretary, I thank Mr. Luke for the questions. Every time when such incidents arise, we have to tell clearly who have to be held accountable. In some incidents, it involves the management of the operating organizations. In such cases, we have to enhance the accountability of the operators. However, in other incidents, it involves individual lawbreakers. Each incident is unique. We sign agreements with RCHDs and their operating organizations. After this incident, we revised the code of conduct. We also held seminars for RCHD staff. We also asked the association involved in this incident to renew its license every year instead of every 3 years. We've learned from the lesson, and we hope that the relevant organizations have as well. Ms. Doreen Kong. After COVID, some RCHDs still adopt closed or outdated approach. And such approach is not as transparent or effective as those that adopt an open approach. How will the government prevent such incidents from happening again? For example, will you ask some RCHDs to open up their homes so that family members of their residents are able to visit the residents. Secretary, there are different types of RCHDs. There are care homes for people suffering from mild intellectual disability. However, for other care homes, they take care of residents that require high level of care. The general principle is that we do hope to have the family members of the residents visit their residents. I visited a number of RCHDs. Some care homes, they don't want their residents to get lost, so they prevent their residents from going out. Under the premise that we ensure the safety and health of residents, we'll try to open up these care homes as much as possible. Mr. Adrian Ho. Thank you, President. The persons included in the sexual conviction record check scheme will now include tutors as well as self-employed persons under the renewed scheme. However, there are no legislations stipulating that employees or employers, other types of employers or employees have to undergo the sexual conviction record check. What are the reasons for this? Secretary. Under the current Code of Conduct, all staff of RCHDs prior to their employment and before their employment contract is renewed, they have to undergo the sexual conviction record check scheme implemented by the police. Most of the RCHDs have implemented this. We have taken into consideration different factors, and we think this is a rather balanced approach, and we will see if there is room for further improvement. Mr. Stanley Lee. We don't want to see any of these unfortunate incidents in our community. There was mention about reporting mechanisms. However, I think that we should do more to prevent the recurrence of such incidents. It will be more practical this way. It might not be 100% helpful in terms of eliminating such incidents. However, we can try to prevent the chances of or lower the chances of these incidents from recurring. With these preventive measures, we might be able to prevent perpetrators from committing crimes. I mentioned that we could introduce AI as well as relevant surveillance systems. The chief executive also said openly that there should be introduction of AI functions into the CCTV surveillance systems. Are there any progresses in this regard? Secretary, I thank Mr. Lee for the suggestions. This is one direction that we can take. And effective CCTV surveillance systems as well as a system of reviewing CCTV footage can help enhance the deterrent effect. Currently, 345 RCHDs, 94% of them, that is 324 of these RCHDs, are equipped with CCTV surveillance systems. The rest of them are installing such systems in a progressive manner. We are testing out AI functions and technologies. We have 11 child caring centers that offer residential services. We have already given them funding for them to test out CCTV surveillance systems with AI functions. There might be the need to adjust these AI systems. we get many alerts from the systems at the beginning. We have to ensure that such systems can operate effectively. If such systems run effectively in the childcare centers, we'll be able to introduce or extend these systems to other care homes. Ms. Connie Lam. It's not the first time that we see such sexual assault incidents. None of these incidents are acceptable, not to mention that they happen to the mentally disabled. I hope the government can come up with an effective mechanism so that the RCHD residents as well as their family members can have confidence about these care homes. In October this year, the Code of Conduct was revised by the government in relation to the security facility requirements. This concerns the frequency and duration of monitoring or reviewing the CCTV footage. In the past, there was a lack of manpower in these RCHDs, and that was the major reason why we saw such sexual assault incidents. Does the Secretary have any ways to prevent such incidents from recurring? Secretary, in October this year, the SWD revised the Code of Practice requiring RCHDs to come up with a mechanism that suits them to monitor the CCTV surveillance systems and view the CCTV footage. In the long run, we hope that we can, through AI, to make this mechanism work. Before we can introduce such AI systems, we can rely on the people who work in the care homes. For example, during holidays, will the residents of these care homes be subject to more danger? Can these RCHD staff step up monitoring during holidays? Within our capability, we hope that we can step up safety for RCHD residents. Ms. Eunice Yong. 94% of the RCHDs are equipped with CCTV surveillance systems. However, 6% of these care homes lack the surveillance systems. What measures will the government put in place to ensure that these 6% of the care homes will be equipped with the CCTV systems and that there will be effective monitoring of the surveillance systems? Secretary, a total of 345 care homes. 324 of them are installed with CCTV systems. That means 21 RCHDs are still lacking the systems. One of them is not going to continue to operate. That means they will not install the systems. The 20 RCHDs will install such systems. In the future, we will have all RCHDs equipped with this surveillance system, and under the Code of Practice, we have to make sure that the surveillance systems are being made use of to step up the monitoring of the operation of RCHDs.
Question 5, Mr. Tang Fei. President, it's learned that patrolling with drones has become an important tool used in Western countries and on the mainland for enhancing the management of public safety and emergency response. There are views that against the background of promoting a low-altitude economy in Hong Kong, drone technology shows great potential of application in the police system. In this connection, will the government inform this council, 1, whether it has plans to promote the application of drone technology in policing and other discipline services, especially for beat patrolling, crime prevention, and traffic management? If so, whether there is a specific timetable and enough operating staff. 2, whether it will conduct differentiated assessment of the effectiveness of patrolling with drones and set the relevant criteria of assessment in view of different environment and safety requirements. If so, of the details. If not, the reasons for that. And 3, whether it will, by studying the experience of other places, further improve the relevant rules and regulations on the use of drones for patrolling in Hong Kong so as to promote technological advancement and protect the privacy and safety of the public at the same time. Secretary for Security. President, the Security Bureau actively encourages and supports the application of various new technologies in its discipline services and auxiliary services to enhance service efficiency and quality. Now, drones are becoming more commonplace, so we take different strategies and we assess the situation as we adopt drones. This is to aid the work of our services. Now, here's my reply to the members' questions. The discipline services and auxiliary services, based on their operational needs, have drones of different sizes, weight, and models, as well as various types of accessories that can be mounted on drones. This is to enhance efficiency and better deploy manpower. Drone use is increasingly common in the department. It serves various functions in different situations. Now, that includes crime detection and investigation. In their operations, the Hong Kong Police Force and the Customs and Excise Department and the Immigration Department use mounted high-resolution cameras on drones to assist in investigation and evidence collection at crime scenes, especially in the countryside and at sea. The video footage can be used as evidence in court when necessary. On beat patrolling and crime prevention, the force uses drones for high-rise patrols at crime black spots. For instance, mounted thermography and infrared detection systems are used to detect the presence of suspicious persons lingering or hiding in remote places or on difficult terrain. On maintaining public safety and order, crowd and traffic management, drones are used by the force to monitor crowds and traffic flow in large-scale events. With real-time images, potential safety hazards are promptly identified and dealt with. The force is also planning to introduce a system for drones to hover above fixed locations for a long period of time for illumination and broadcasting. This will let us send messages to remind the public to stay vigilant. Our rescue operations, the force, the Fire Services Department, and the Civil Aid Service use drones to cope with dangerous and harsh terrain, such as cliffs and mountains, and quickly reach the scenes to assist in the search for missing persons. During the rescue, drones are also conducting aerial surveillance to ensure safety at the site. In major, complex, and special incidents, drones can take high-resolution photographs of collapsed structures and deformed debris to build three-dimensional models. This will facilitate the assessment and planning of rescue operations by the ground rescue party. When needed, drones can also airdrop necessities to persons to be rescued. Now, on firefighting, the FSD uses drones equipped with thermal detectors to monitor temperature changes at various parts of a fire scene from various angles in the air. The data help incident commanders devise a route of entry into and evacuation from the fire scene and work out firefighting strategies. This will enhance operational efficiency and safety. On management of prisons and detention facilities, drones are used by the Correctional Services Department and the Immigration Department to assist in the inspection of security facilities, to analyze the wear and tear of boundary fencing and detect foreign objects on the rooftops of buildings, as well as in emergency response operations of correctional facilities and institutions. This is for better security. The use of drones involves a specialized set of skills. That's why our departments attach great importance to the training of relevant personnel. The FSD established in 2017 the Unmanned Aircraft System Team, which uses drones in firefighting and rescue tasks. In October this year, the force formally established the Force Drone Cager to assist all regions in performing flight missions. As at November this year, there were a total of about 800 drone operators under the discipline services who had been recognized by the Civil Aviation Department with advanced rating, meaning they were qualified to conduct advanced drone operations, including the use of drones weighing more than 7 kilograms and up to 25 kilograms. In the future, the discipline services will remain guided by operational needs as they continue to train enough qualified operators. As drone technology matures, drones have become more versatile. At present, the discipline services, when using drones, conduct assessment and fully consider various factors, including the nature of operation, location, terrain, and weather, before deciding on the most suitable models of drones and the accessories to be used, so as to optimize performance of duties and functions. The discipline services will periodically review the effectiveness of drone applications in their operations. They will keep in view technological developments in an ongoing effort to devise strategies for drone use in the long run. To further enhance their regulation of drone use, the Transport and Logistics Bureau and the Civil Aviation Department have started reviewing legislation and regulatory regimes on civil aviation and other related affairs. In the process, we will study similar laws and standards imposed by the civil aviation authorities of other places such as the mainland, Australia, and Canada, with due consideration given to Hong Kong's present needs and long-term deployment. As a first step, the CAD will relax the existing restrictions on beyond line-of-sight flying activities under the Small Unmanned Aircraft Order. Meanwhile, the government will update the civil aviation legislation in phases, starting with amending the existing Small Unmanned Aircraft Order to cover drones weighing more than 25 kilograms and up to 150 kilograms. The government will also consider enacting new dedicated legislation for various types of advanced air mobility weighing more than 150 kilograms. The disciplined services will stick to Hong Kong's legislative framework when they draw on the experience of other regions and adopt drones where appropriate and feasible. In particular, the force is exploring the introduction of an automatic patrol system subject to the relaxation of rules on beyond line-of-sight flying activities. This can improve operational effectiveness and work quality by automating the process, and this can also improve the outcome. While developing drone technology, departments will exercise stringent control and oversight when they enforce the relevant legislation to ensure drone operation is safe and in line with privacy principles. That's how we protect people's privacy. Mr. Tang Fei. There was a drone show at the West Kowloon Cultural District. There was an incident. Some pointed to the atmospheric scintillation as the cause. We have no control over meteorological reasons, and that got in the way. So my question is, does the same kind of problems come up for the use of drones by the disciplined services? And when that happens, what do you do? Secretary, there was a technical reason leading to the cancellation of that drone show. We looked into what happened. We have an interdepartmental team involving the Hong Kong Observatory, the Office of the Communications Authority, and the Force. We believe that incident had to do with atmospheric scintillation. That phenomenon caused minor problems in the movement of drones. And we're talking about just centimeters of space between drones. With the atmospheric scintillation, drones may crash into one another. So that's why it wasn't a good time for a drone show, and the show had to be cancelled. Now, on drone use for enforcement and rescue, we don't go through a computerized process. We have operators manning the drones. So in that case, you don't have to worry about a computer having to estimate the distance between drones. For our missions, an error of a few centimeters isn't a major problem because we're only using one drone in the mission. So the impact will be minimal. When meteorological problems are at play, our operators can still conduct the drone operations as intended. So that will be no impact for our missions. Mr. Ambrose Lam. I support greater use of drones for patrol and firefighting. But let's think about security matters for a moment. We have an airport, we have barracks. The grounds of the Legislative Council are also no-fly zones. When a drone intrudes into this space, there may be security problems for people and also national security risks. So my question for the Bureau is, how does the government intercept these drones that try to intrude into no-fly zones? Secretary, I agree with the member. There are areas such as the airport, barracks, the electrical complex, and the government offices. For these places, we need to protect these places from the interference of drones. But there are times when drones have to get near these places. Say someone is using drones to inspect the external walls of the electrical complex. That's why we do have a mechanism. Now, with the director of the Civil Aviation and the Commissioner of Police, as well as the Secretary for Security, can grant exemptions when there are operational or security needs. That's how we make sure drone use will be safe. Now, when someone does intrude into no-fly zones, first of all, that action constitutes an offense. We also have technologies at our disposal to deal with intruding drones. But this has to do with operational details, so I cannot go into the specifics. We do have the technology to deal with intruding drones, and we have ways to find out where that drone comes from, and then we can investigate further. Ms. Elizabeth Quat. Thank you, President. Now we're going all out on developing a low-altitude economy. I welcome the adoption of drones by the force and other disciplined services. Drones bring economic benefit. Drones can also help with city management. The main reply says the force is looking at an automatic patrol system enabled by AI so that we can have automated aerial missions. I support that. Such systems in other cities are open to multiple government departments. When something requires attention, the information goes to the relevant agencies for action. So for our automated drone system, automated patrol system, will this system be open to other government departments? The force is also installing many CCTV systems, cameras in different parts. Many cities have put up drones instead of CCTVs. Ms. Quat, you have asked a question. Secretary. When we fight crime and mount operations, we do some sort of sharing. There was a case involving a miner who got lost in a mountain. So the Fire Services Department shared information with other departments such as the Flying Service. Now, on sharing the data with other departments, we have to make sure we follow privacy laws in doing that. I want to spend a minute on CCTV systems and drones. We're dealing with two separate systems. Surveillance cameras capture information at fixed locations. Drones, on the other hand, they may not be linked up with the cameras in real time, but we can look into that. Mr. Scotland. Drones can improve the efficiency of policing. In places like country parks or at sea, you cannot keep an eye, or you could not keep an eye on those places, but now drones can help. In country parks and at sea, there are things we can do. Now, on the vessels of the Marine Police, you can make drones standard equipment so that trained officers can use drones. Or as the main reply says, we can have automated patrolling route so that drones can help deal with crime and identify risks. The main reply mentions restrictions on beyond line of sight flying activities. So will the Bureau consider talking to the CAD about relaxing those rules for the discipline services so that our discipline services can undertake missions, and this can enhance the effectiveness of drone use. Indeed, the current laws impose restrictions on beyond line-of-sight flying activities or bylaws. Technology is advancing, meaning the tech is now safer. And there are times when the operator have to use the drones in a spot they cannot see. Drones are getting safer. That's why the CAD is looking at relaxations to the law, so that this will apply not just to law enforcement, but also this can help the low-altitude economy's development. So relaxing the rules for bylaws will be a key area. Professor William Wong. The Secretary's reply says they will make sure the use of drones will be in line with the Personal Data Privacy Ordinance to protect people's privacy. So my question is, are there guidelines on privacy for the discipline services to follow? Will there be inspections, checks to make sure that people's privacy is indeed protected? Secretary. Different services have stringent requirements on when they can use drones. Those rules include protection for privacy. There are internal guidelines on when you can film what's going on. Only officers at a certain grade can approve the use of drones. Flight routes are also planned in advance. The drones have to steer clear of where people live and where drones may intrude into people's privacy. The drones also use red and blue lights to alert people to the use of the drones. And there are also signs showing people that a drone is in action. The police drone operators also put up signs to show people that an officer is operating the drone. We also treat the information we get with care. Only officers at a certain rank, and only when they see such a need, they can retrieve the information. Otherwise, the information obtained will be deleted after 31 days. Mr. Chen Siu-hong. The main reply refers to firefighting. The FSD uses drones for firefighting and also aerial surveillance. There are well-established drones for firefighting purposes. The drones can disperse powder to put out the fire. Of course, it all depends on the fire scene situation. Have we given thought to introducing these well-established products? And if not, what are the reasons? Secretary, we have given thought to these products and we're looking into these products. We use drones to detect the temperature of the scene of fire. Using drones to put out the fire is also an area we're looking at. In the mainland and elsewhere, the drones can actually carry the fire hose for firefighting, and we are looking at this space. And when appropriate, we will bring in such technology. Mr. Lai Tong-kwok. Thank you. I want to follow up on Mr. Chen Siu-hong's question. The main reply says the CAD will relax the restrictions on the weight up to 150 kilograms or even going beyond that weight. There may be legislative amendments. Mr. Chen Siu-hong's question was about firefighting. Now, I have a question, more specifically about hill fires. You have to get the government flying service involved. They have just a few helicopters. And when those helicopters go to fight the fire, you don't have helicopters left for other rescue missions. So will the Secretary give priority to the use of drones with water or other materials for putting out fires, and that's for putting out hill fires? Secretary, the FSD is indeed looking at the use of drones with dry powder to put out fire. in remote areas, you may not even have water. And even larger drones can only carry a limited amount of water. So we will look into ways to make the most of drones to fight fire.
Last question seeking an oral reply, Dr. NGAN Man-yu. President, the government has indicated in the latest policy address that it will make better use of Hong Kong's resources to instill the concept of tourism is everywhere in Hong Kong. In this connection, will the government inform this council, 1, in order to realize the tourism potential of various districts, whether the government will cooperate with different government departments and district organizations in the planning for the coming year and provide various policy incentives to jointly promote the development of district tourism, if so, of the details. 2, whether the government will cooperate with various organizations and merchants in Lei Yue Mun to design characteristic tourism programs by leveraging elements such as Lei Yue Mun's fishing village culture, traditional customs, and seafood delicacies, if so, of details. And 3, whether it will consider promoting the development of tourism in Lei Yue Mun through publicity and enhanced ancillary transport facilities to boost the appeal and popularity of Lei Yue Mun, launching new ferry routes of cultural tourism plying between Lei Yue Mun and Sai Kung and Tsim Sha Tsui, to promote sightseeing boat tours of Hong Kong, as well as conducting tourism activities with Lei Yue Mun as the base, of so of details. Thank you, President. Secretary for Culture, Sports and Tourism. Thank you, President. President, tourism is one of the major driving forces of Hong Kong's economy. Following the resumption of normal travel starting from February 2023, the tourism industry began to recover at full speed, with steady growth in visitor arrivals. From January to October 2024, some 36.7 million arrivals were recorded. It is a year-on-year increase of about 37%. As announced in the policy address this year, the government will develop Hong Kong into a premier tourism destination through innovative thinking and making better use of our rich and unique resources, developing tourism products with characteristics, and consolidating the attractiveness of traditional tourism to instill the concept of tourism is everywhere in Hong Kong. In respect of the question raised by Dr. An, in consultation with the Home and Youth Affairs Bureau and the Transport Department, the reply is as follows. 1. Joint efforts by different sectors through active collaboration and coordination, and optimizing the use of district resources to explore more tourism products with characteristics are essential to promote development of tourism. The Chief Executive announced in the policy address that a working group on developing tourist hotspots will be set up to strengthen a cross-departmental coordination and leverage community efforts, identify and develop tourist hotspots of high popularity in various districts. The objective of the working group is to coordinate through high-level steering projects that require interdepartmental industry and community collaboration and identify and build new hotspots for district tourism. The working group is led by the Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration and comprised of 10 bureau secretaries and directors and members. The first meeting of the working group was held on 8th of November to discuss how to identify and develop tourist hotspots of high popularity and with strong appeal, as well as the subsequent work plan, which includes collecting proposals on tourism hotspots through the district offices to select suitable development projects. The working group will continue to follow up on the recommendations and is expected to formulate projects for implementation in the first half of 2025. In 2024, the Home Affairs Department and the district councils have jointly launched the Day and Night Vibes at 18 districts to roll out activities with district characteristics and traditional cultural connotations across the city, including bazaar, carnivals, artwork exhibitions, musical performances, and sports experiences, to create a buoyant mood in the community and support the local economy. 2 and 3. Lei Yue Mun is one of Hong Kong's popular tourist spots. The Tourism Commission, under the CSTB, is taking forward the Lei Yue Mun waterfront enhancement project since December 2020, which improves the facilities along the waterfront and enhances its connectivity with the rest of Hong Kong. The works under the project include the construction of a public landing facility and the development of a waterfront promenade and related improvement works. The first and second phases of the works includes the construction of a new viewing platform, improvement works to facilities in the existing Lee Yuen Mun Rest Garden, as well as beautification works along the waterfront. These works are already completed and the facilities have been opened to the public for their use. The remaining works are expected to be completed by end January 2025. That would include a public landing facility, breakwater, and a promenade. By then, the 3 existing leisure venues in close proximity to the waterfront, that is the Lee Yuen Mun waterfront sitting out area, Typhoon Shelter breakwater sitting out area, and rest garden, will provide visitors a scenic and unique route. The venues also facilitate the organization of events by district organizations to further promote the development of district tourism. The CSTB in June 2024 launched a new phase of the City in Time augmented reality tourism project, bringing back to life the historical landscape of certain locations and districts through a mobile application. Furthermore, district organizations hold from time to time tourism programs and traditional cultural celebration activities with local characteristics, such as the Lee Yuen Mun Seafood Festival and Teen Health Festival celebratory activities. The Kwun Tong District Office has been maintaining close liaison with relevant stakeholders and providing appropriate assistance when necessary. On transport arrangement in the vicinity of the Lee Yuen Mun Seafood Bazaar, there are several on-street coaches parking. It is believed that the parking spaces could meet the parking demand. The Transport Department will continue to monitor the situation to make sure parking spaces are adequate. There are 3 pack-up or drop-off points for coaches on Lee Yuen Mun Path. There are about 500 parking spaces in nearby car parks. And on the roadside, there are about 30 parking spaces for coaches. At present, the locals and visitors can take the public transport services to and from Lee Yuen Mun. Land transport services include KMB route number 14X to and from Yaotong and Tsim Sha Tsui, green minibus route number 24, 3 red minibus routes from Kwun Tong, Mong Kok, and Jordan Road to Yaotong and Lee Yuen Mun. For waterborne transport services, there is a licensed ferry service to and from Sai Wan Ho and Sam Kah Chun. The Transport Department would closely monitor the demand of these services and review the service arrangements whenever necessary. On promotion, the Hong Kong Tourism Board has been promoting Lee Yuen Mun's diversified tourism features and unique experiences to visitors through various channels. The Tourism Board's website lists in detail the attractions and hotspots in Lee Yuen Mun, including the old Lee Yuen Mun Quarry, Tin Hau Temple Murals Village, Lee Yuen Mun Lighthouse Observation Deck, Jockey Club Lee Yuen Mun Plus, and Lee Yuen Mun Seafood District, as well as a map detailing the locations of various attractions and the transportation to Lee Yuen Mun. President, the CSTB will continue to work with relevant bureaus or departments to promote the development of tourism with local characteristics. The Tourism Board will continue to showcase Hong Kong's charm through various ways to tell good stories of Hong Kong and promote development of tourism. Thank you. Dr. An Man-yu. When we talk about Lee Yuen Mun, we often talk about getting seafood there, but there are many attractions and the beautiful landscape of Lee Yuen Mun to appreciate. But there is still room for improvement for connectivity to and from Lee Yuen Mun. I urge the government to consider implementing water taxi services to make sure there are landing facilities so that we can make good use of the flexible waterborne transport services. Thank you. Secretary, I think Dr. An's suggestion. In fact, for water taxi services, since the launch 2 years ago, they have been looking for new routes. The landing measures will be completed in January 2025 in Lake Yumun. It is a good opportunity for us to review the relevant arrangements to see whether in Kowloon East and Island East we can have some new routes for water taxis. Thank you. Ms. Jovi Chen. In order to implement tourism is everywhere in Hong Kong, we cannot rely on our existing attractions. We need new attractions. We also have many innovative tourism concepts. We have yacht tourism promulgated in the policy address. I myself have played some water sports myself. I have communicated with the trade, and I believe there are new growth areas in the industry. And according to recent figures, in the recent tourism strategy promulgated by the government, Sunny Bay is a quality destination for the development of yacht tourism. So I want to ask, in addition to having more yacht berthing spaces, say in Hong Kong, Lama and Aberdeen, are there any other additional yacht spaces, berthing spaces you have in mind? Thank you. Secretary, is it possible to have yacht tourism in Sunny Bay? We'll definitely explore that. But the problem is Sunny Bay is a flying zone. If yachts have to be berthed there overnight, there may be noise nuisance concerns, but I do thank the member for her suggestion. Thank you. Mr. Chan Ho-feng. Well, there are many different ways to implement tourism is everywhere, but we do not have enough ancillary facilities. Is it possible to coordinate different departments to relax, for example, certain licensing restrictions, for example, for food stalls, licenses, hawkers, or cultural performances, so that we can really develop tourism is everywhere? Thank you, Secretary. Thank you, Mr. Chan, for your suggestion. The current term government will look at different ways to facilitate different creative ideas and look to relax restrictions. Before, when applying for licenses, it would take much time and one would have to perhaps go to different departments. When we are thinking about relaxing restrictions, we would think about how we can better develop tourism is everywhere in Hong Kong, and we want to make sure there are more support facilities or supporting measures to support that. Thank you. Mr. Kenneth Fogg. Director Xia Baolong said, we have to make good use of our 1,180-kilometer coastline as well as our outlying islands. For island hopping tours, we have seen that do well in Sai Kung. But we need to make sure we need to have more international arts festivals. We have a prominent arts festival in Japan, and we can refer to that example. We have many in the relevant trades that want to take part, but then the problem is they are not very familiar with the transportation routes in the area. Can you have a feasibility study to promulgate a blueprint for the trades reference so that they know which islands can be used in such island hopping tourism? Thank you. Secretary, we have been doing much with coastline and the outlying islands. We have slowly connected the waterfront of the Victoria Harbour, and in Lantau Island we have had much development in northern Lantau, in southern Lantau. We are also looking for ways to develop tourism. For outlying islands in Sai Kung, Yantian and Yanqiaotang, we have been trying to look for ways to have green and sustainable tourism to make good use of the resources in the area. As for whether we can provide more information to the trades, information on the islands, I can definitely liaise with Mr. Fogg after the meeting to see how we can provide better support to the trades. Thank you. Mr. Kenneth Lau. We, of course, want to make good use of the 1,180 kilometer coastline and the hundreds of islands of Hong Kong. We want to implement island tourism that will boost the economy. We have typhoon shelters in Hong Kong. There have been figures that many vessels are just abandoned in typhoon shelters. Will the government consider replanning yacht berthing spaces and provide additional yacht berthing spaces and relax the restrictions for entry of international yachts in order to boost tourism? Thank you. Secretary, I understand that typhoon shelters are necessary for the maritime industry, and especially in winter, vessels would be berthed there for the season. We need to work with the Marine Department to see if it is possible to have more yacht berthing spaces, and on clearance arrangements we would have to liaise with the relevant authorities for that. I do hear many members are suggesting yacht tourism. I will, after the meeting, review the relevant arrangements for the promotion of yacht tourism. Thank you. Dr. Chen Han-pen. Tourism is everywhere is very important. I worked with Dr. NGAN Man-yu to look into how in Chunwon, Lei Yunmun, and Kwai Ting we can implement that concept. And while we're studying the various areas, we found that many sites of the government are abandoned in these areas. And we have many organizations who want to apply to the government to use these sites for tourism projects. Would the government consider having streamlined procedures to facilitate district organizations to rent these sites to implement tourism projects so that we would have more diversified tourism projects? I wonder if the government would have policy support in this area. Thank you, Secretary. I think I first have to look into what the abandoned sites are in these areas. If these are school premises, I worked in a specific bureau, the housing bureau, that will actually make use of such sites for housing purposes. That is a possibility. If the sites house other facilities, we need to really look into it to see if it has the potential to be converted for the use of tourism. And once we have the relevant information, we should be able to come up with more policies in this area. Thank you. Mr. Yan Wing-kit, I think we shouldn't think about only Lei Yunmun. We need to think on a more macro perspective. For example, when I met with Wong Tai Sin District Council members, district councillors suggested incorporating the temple culture to develop tourism. In Wong Tai Sin, there's the Wong Tai Sin Temple. We also have a Buddhist temple. In future, we will have a Taoist temple. So apart from seafood festival in Lei Yunmun, can we promote the temple culture in Wong Tai Sin to encourage more tourists to come to Hong Kong to experience that part of the culture? Thank you, Secretary. Well, I think Wong Tai Sin does not necessarily have only travel resources. These are religious facilities. Many are already interested in visiting the attraction, regardless of whether it's from a religious perspective or from a tourism perspective. The working group on developing tourist hotspots will consider these different district tourism elements. As for how we can combine the different attractions, we will definitely look into it to make sure we are putting together a route that is very attractive. Thank you. Mr. Benson, look, according to the main reply, in order to make in order to instill the concept of tourism is everywhere, we really have to make good use of the different travel resources. In fact, in Lei Yue Moon, we do not only have seafood, we have many attractions that would have the starting points and ending points of running tournaments. And in fact, according to recent figures, we have 600 odd running events in the past year. We had 6 million participants, and every year we had different running events in Hong Kong. Is it possible that we can have a list of running tournaments in Hong Kong so that the tourists may even become participants in such running competitions, so that we can be a primary destination for running enthusiasts? Thank you. Secretary, I think your suggestion is very good. I will ask the tourism board to look into this. Thank you. Mr. Yu Patlam. Excuse me, Mr. Yu Patlam. Regarding Dr. An's question on development of Lei Yue Moon tourism, I do appreciate him raising the question, but the problem is we do not really think much about the outside the seafood in Lei Yue Moon. There are many different attractions, including the Devil's Peak in Lei Yue Moon. Is it possible that we can make good use of the hill so that we have a comprehensive travel route for tourists? Secretary, we are more than willing to consider the suggestion. Thank you.
Government bills. First reading. Protection of critical infrastructures, computer system